think that agents and AI will be ready and capable and better than me at running my portfolio and my strategies like within weeks.
All these crypto banks trying to make a DeFi protocol into a bank. And you only need to grow in a couple of markets before you grow global. Revolut had no success in most countries, and then they did in Romania, which opened them in Eastern Europe, and then it opened them in the UK.
Relevant players there are Plasma with Plasma 1, but that is yet to be launched. You of course have Mantle. I think it is NU or something similar, what their Neobank is called. Then of course you have EtherFi.
If we're not there, we are so close within like weeks of the loop being closed where AI is becoming fully improving without humans in the loop.
Welcome to episode 72, and we are here with another roundtable. Today we are joined by Farmer and Vlad. How are you guys doing?
Good, surviving the bear, building stuff, pushing vaults out.
Yeah, man, just doing great, chilling. Thanks for having us.
Always happy when you guys are joining. So we have seen at least a temporary bottom on February 5th. So around a week ago, pretty much exactly a week ago. Were you guys still exposed to the markets? How have you handled the downturn, and has it changed anything in your positioning or your immediate and maybe even longer term market outlook?
For me, I mean, you know this, we talk all the time. I was sort of a 4-year cycler. And so I sort of went with that. I had some exposure in the fall. And then once Bitcoin dropped, closed a weekly under 96K, I kind of like sold all the dust, every single thing I could possibly find. That was my plan for, over a year probably. And that's what I did. So I've been chilling. And, that doesn't mean like I don't look at new opportunities constantly. I think there's always opportunities. And sometimes it's the best time to find small opportunities when there's like really no noise, when there's like everyone is, I think in like super bullish conditions, people overplay how like awesome something is and how like high it can go. And then right now we're just sort of in the exact opposite, where I think we're seeing things that are massively cool and should be getting way more hype and price action as they are, but they're not, because everything else around them just looks like it's crumbling and dying. So it makes those projects look worse. So yeah, I think it's a good time to sort of like be very slightly kind of scaling in and playing with stuff.
I do want to echo something you said. Markets like this are great because they have a very good signal to noise ratio. It's exactly the case in a bull market. Markets tend to become extremely irrational, and people want to ape into anything because everything is going up. So you might as well try and X your money as much as you can. That doesn't mean that you have good projects growing in that period of time. However, if you look at the last bull market, especially at the DeFi summer, the vast majority of the protocols they made it big back then were the ones that were being built in either market downturns or periods like this. I'm not sure how much the 4-year cycle can still apply. There are people who say, hey, Bitcoin moves like clockwork every 4 years. And yeah, it did. But I mean, if you've been in any form of finance or crypto or trading for a while, you should know that correlation isn't causation. And it could just simply be the natural movement that the market has. I don't know if we're in a bear market. I don't know if we're in a bull market. I do know that in terms of what DeFi needs is more stablecoin volume and more capital coming in for stablecoins, which is tied to the price action of Bitcoin and ETH, of course, but it can exist outside of it as well by quite a lot. Generally, in bear markets, you see people move out of assets, out of altcoins, and they usually go either in Bitcoin, DCA the way down, or ETH, or they go into stable coins. Yields do compress during the same time as well, but it's a pretty good time for projects that have been overhyped to, I don't want to say die, but be reevaluated to their true value. And it's a great period, especially if you have either revenue runway or you are building something to be able to build it in these types of markets. And then whenever the markets pick up, they pick up with whatever protocols have been built in these periods. So I'm not cautiously optimistic or pessimistic at all. I just take it day by day, basically.
Is there anything that is liquid and tradable already that either of you guys are looking to accumulate throughout the next couple of months?
Yeah,
Farmer, go ahead.
definitely for me. I guess the one thing that I still have a lot of exposure to is hype, and so I won't like be buying any more of it, but I also won't be selling it. I sort of like took away some of like the delta neutralness of my position in hype, where I was trying to farm, like Kinetic and some of the other cool like hype protocols. So I'm still really into SATA, sort of like the Oracle helping power the HIP3, now HIP4 markets, and they're getting some big traction. And so like every time they give data to a protocol, it like a little bit of SATA is burnt. And so like now that you see like they're giving data to like more and more people, and that happens like every second for all of eternity, then like the burn starts in. So like I don't know, I follow those guys and it is just sort of starting. I like buying charts that look like this in the bear market. It's sort of like all-time low right as like traction is like hitting and ramping up. So yeah, I
Have
like
you
this
bought some
I
yet?
like this entry here. Huh?
Have you bought some yet?
Yeah. Very slowly, like right now, just starting to like very slowly kind of scale in. Even though I think this is like going to be like within 20% of the bottom, so like I don't care with this chart. I think I could like ape it and be happy and comfy sitting in there. This is like 10 or 15 million market cap, probably like fully diluted 22. So yeah, I think this like they have a great narrative and an amazing team, so I'm excited about that. And then the last thing that I haven't bought yet, but I probably should have, is Canton. I think that's going to be this next cycle's like sort of darling and XRP, just because the narrative is just so strong and it just like will make sense to basically everyone. So yeah, I think this is our new sort of like corporate XRP coin that everyone's going to be super stoked about. I think it's easily going to be like a top 10 project, and yeah, they're crushing it. And CT still basically knows nothing about it. The typical, if there's anyone left here, then no one's really talking about it.
At what price would you buy it, or at what market cap?
I think right now is good. I think like it's sort of like just start sort of scaling in is my plan anyway. Like I have no idea. If Bitcoin goes to 40K, does like everything look much worse? Then yeah, probably. But I think like hype's ecosystem, which includes SATA and then Canton, these are the things that I'm like, other than all the AI stuff and open claw that we're going to talk about probably later. That's kind of where my head's at. Things that I want to accumulate.
Vlad, what is your take on directional exposure? I mean, given that in pretty much all of your strategies, you are farming stable coins, so you're not inherently involved in the long delta or short delta side of things, but still a lot of the final yields of and the attractiveness of your vaults is dependent on how well points programs perform. So there is some indirect bet on a delta, both related to DeFi coins, majors. You can also talk about alt L1s, anything that you find exciting right now, or anything that you look upon with a particularly bearish stance for the next couple of months.
I will have to correct you and tell you that we don't only do yields on stable coins. We have carry trades where
You do have ETH and BTC vaults, right?
yeah. Look, outside of Bitcoin, ETH, and stables, I don't really look at much. I think we had this conversation prior. I think Pendle is an extremely fundamentally good project. Fixed duration, fixed rates. That is something that I definitely think will be in the space for longer. Would I buy would I increase my exposure to the token? Not really sure. Hype is not a bad investment either, since they're so big and they can just buy back quite a lot. But outside of that, honestly, with the market being where it is, and with the DeFi side of things becoming a lot more mature, I think we're approaching the point where you're gonna have a lot more mature strategies and ways to do DeFi. Narrative wise, I think we're gonna touch on it a bit later, but tranching is definitely the narrative in DeFi right now. And I'm looking a lot more at the ability of no, I like the opportunities that you have as an asset manager or as a farmer in the space, just farming increasingly more consistent yields. I think that is a very good signal for the market being more mature. Is that if yields become more consistent and they don't really all go from like 30% to 2% in a space of like a couple of weeks. So the answer is a lot more boring, but then again, that's what that's what we do at Tau, and that's what I spend my day on. Outside of crypto, I only do aerospace and defense stocks, and I use options. So I'm a lot more degenerate outside of crypto than I am in crypto.
Yeah, speaking of tranching, so Royco just introduced Royco Dawn. I think Royco got the most publicity with the Berachain launch when that implementation wasn't called Royco but Boyco. And they essentially handled the entire pre-deposit campaign for Berachain, if I remember correctly. If I'm wrong, feel free to...
That's true.
Yeah. And other than that, never really heard of Royco after that. I do think they were aiming to compete to something similar to Merkle, so essentially deal with incentives. I don't know if they're I get the position in the stack, but certainly in that same sector. And now they've introduced Royco Dawn, which is essentially a framework where you can take an existing vault of on-chain yield, and Royco Dawn lets you separate that into a junior and a senior tranche. And the interesting thing with that is that some of the vaults that are being tranched by Royco are already a tranche. I think that is the case with Avant, if I remember correctly, where you take the senior tranche and now you turn that senior tranche again into another senior and a junior tranche. So you somewhat synthetically create a mezzanine tranche. What is your perspective on tranching everything? Are we reaching a point where this is just kind of like mental masturbation in the DeFi space, or do you think there's a genuine unlock and catering to different risk profiles here?
All finance is mental masturbation. This isn't anything different from TradFi. People will create financial products and then they'll create derivatives on them and then they'll create derivatives of those derivatives and some of them will blow up and others won't. Look, in the end, any markets, crypto, commodities, whatever, is a trilemma. You balance between time, profit, and risk. If you want a low risk and high profit, you sacrifice on time. So you have to wait 85 years to make your $1 million off of whatever, 4% annualized yield, which is consistently 4%. Conversely, if you want a lot of money fast, you have very high risk. So you basically leverage trade meme coins or whatever you want. This isn't any different. You will have individuals and have small funds and larger funds that do this all the time, where you basically balance between these things. Royco Dawn specific, I haven't looked into it too much, but it has much more of a platform focus where, of course, you can tranche anything you want, but I haven't looked into it to see how easy it is to bring in a vault and do it yourself. The whole do it yourself thing might be good if you're a curator, if you're a more experienced DeFi player. But we'll have to see how it goes. Tranching other tranches is definitely something that, again, it's been done in finance for a while. So honestly, we'll see how the market takes it. There will definitely be different flavors of tranching risk in the space. With Strata now having neutral, with mezzanine coming out, there are definitely a lot of ways where you can play around in the time, risk, and profit trilemma. So let's just wait to see how it goes. Will they do a token or are they doing incentives? I haven't looked into it that much. I have to admit, I've had a crazy week.
I do not know. I just tried to find a link to their app, but I mean, first of all, they don't have any link in their bio, which is kind of weird.
I saw that. That's why I didn't look at it.
That's why I didn't look at it. If you are on the app, it just shows coming soon. So yeah, I guess we have to stay tuned for that. But I mean, back when they launched, they got quite a bit of traction pretty early. So yeah, I think it's worth keeping an eye on this one.
There is
Other
one
than that,
to add here. The approach from Royco and from others to RWAs, the biggest pain point, and this is also presents an opportunity for protocols and for curators and for whoever. The biggest pain point with RWAs is that the cash flow from some businesses is not fully liquid. So it comes in every week or every month or every 6 months, depending on if the underlying business is, I don't know, real estate or gold or oil or Forex basis point futures or whatever else you do, right? And in DeFi, people expect liquidity. Now, you can, of course, solve this by doing duration. But the interesting part where tranches come in is that duration is just another form of risk. You are locked in for a longer period of time, having exposure to some yield. So I think risk tranching in general can definitely be interesting for RWAs because they're going to try and solve or at least bring an alternative solution to something that everybody in this space is trying to solve. We're also working with a bunch of RWA projects, and most of the economic designs we do for them are around exactly tranching, on exactly the solving for the duration issue. That's the point I wanted to make.
In other news, we have just seen an announcement by Mantle that they have deployed Aave V3 on it, and there is going to be an incentive program. Vlad, maybe more geared towards you. What is your take on incentive programs? And then maybe Danny, are you willing to hold any tokens that have like ongoing emissions and incentive programs, or do you basically presume them dead in a market environment like this one?
Well, I mean, they're a tool, so they're not inherently good or bad. The reality is that the space is small and it is growing. And in order to get attention, you have to effectively bribe people to come to your platform. Incentives, if done correctly, can be somewhat effective. You won't get sticky liquidity above, I don't know, 10, 20% of the capital that came in while you were doing incentives. That isn't necessarily something that you change, but people will still keep doing it because it's a means to an end for a protocol, right? You incentivize people, you pay a certain amount of dollars per user and per dollar coming in. But the goal is to reach a certain amount of TVL where you're operationally profitable and you have enough revenue where you don't need to care about incentives or taking other risks. So you want to basically use incentives to become the size of Aave, the size of Morpho, the size of whatever else, large protocol, Turtle Club, whatever you want. And from then on, the game changes a lot. You don't really need to bother with incentives anymore. But until then, it's kind of like, there are exceptions to this. Pendle, again, is a very good example. Pendle, people didn't really care about their points. Pendle grew because they made a lot of friends in the space and because other protocols could use Pendle for their own incentives. And the fact that people could speculate on points and getting fixed rates meant that you wanted to be integrated with Pendle as you grew and you wanted to have an LP there, want to have a market there. That is a different way to approach, but it depends a lot on the protocol. So in this case with Mantle, I definitely think it's going to go well in terms of there's going to be a lot of TVL coming in. I am sure a significant chunk of that will leave after. But yeah, it's not any different from any others. And me personally, I mean, we don't really hold airdrop tokens at all. Most of our LPs don't either. A good chunk of them discount them to zero whenever we plan for strategies, by the way. But yeah, it's just basically a nice extra to have effectively.
Yeah, for me, I'm not holding any DeFi tokens. Tons of interesting stuff happening. It's like everybody is sort of wondering what's going to happen as TradFi, traditional finance, sort of slowly comes into this space. And I mean, it seems like, with the Robinhood announcement this week, they are doing their own chain, right? So they launched a testnet this week. And I think we just sort of see that over and over again. I think like the technology barrier gets easier, like quarter over quarter. And so most of the big players are going to just want to control their own chain, right? This is like the Cosmos thesis from 3 or 4 years ago that I think is turning out to be true, but it just turns out that it's not that hard to have your own L2 on ETH or have your own L1 and skip all the like Cosmos kind of bullshit. But I think the thesis was correct. Everybody talks about like Syrup and Pendle as being like sort of the most bullish coins to hold. I know some people who are like long-term Morpho holders. They've been really successful, but no, not for me. I don't have really any interest in any of those things in my portfolio.
How do you guys think is Mantle positioned overall? And maybe do you have any opinion on the neobanking layer of DeFi? I think the relevant players there are Plasma with Plasma One, but that is yet to be launched. You of course have Mantle. I think it is NU or something similar, what their neobank is called. Then of course you have EtherFi. I think EtherFi managed to build a very gracious pivot away from the restaking narrative from 1.5, 2 years ago. But yeah, how do you think these are positioned, and do you think they'll be able to compete with the existing fintechs?
You want to go first?
Yeah, sure. I think they won't that well. I think there'll be like one or two sort of like killer apps that come out. I spent a few months deciding, or like I started the process of building like a consumer first application where people can, basically just have a savings account on their phone and save money and get high yield with DeFi in the background, but it basically just be like a savings account. This is the type of thing I think we're missing. I think all of these projects and products should be like all over the world, building apps and building teams to have like a forward facing, very easy to use, like grandma can use apps where they can put money in and get 4 to 6% on their money consistently forever and outperform like a savings account. I feel like that's sort of like the low hanging fruit right now, even though it's, of course it's difficult to do. It's difficult to get the distribution. It's difficult to get the regulations right in all the different government environments around the world. But if I were these DeFi teams, that's what I would be working on. Especially if I'm a big team and I'm well funded, I would be taking my 2 or 3 smartest people and just saying like, go start these companies and we'll back them and see which one's best over time. So I don't know. Right now, the big fintechs have the distribution, and I don't know how that's going to change. I think they're going to build their own layers and just sort of like basically do their own thing.
Yeah, Sam from Messari, he shared an overview based on some article from a Pantera guy on all the crypto neobanks, and I do think that somewhat similar to perp dexes or a year ago meme coin launch pads and then trading terminals, I think we are already seeing an overabundance of these apps competing over what right now is still a very small user group. So I would think that those that don't have any existing distribution or that do not have a clear edge in gaining distribution or cooperations with existing fintechs or TradFi players, they basically stand no chance.
Yeah, the good ones will get bought up and the not good ones just will die. So it's like it's difficult to see. There'll probably be a couple big winners, right? And that will get the distribution and sort of like do everything right. We haven't really seen that yet. I like seeing like in the grow money section, like FOMO. I think that's the best crypto app I've ever used. I use it every day because I think the airdrop will be one of the best of all time.
Can you briefly explain what FOMO is and what sets it apart?
Sure. FOMO is a way to trade any tokens. And so they're chain agnostic. They started with Solana meme coins and all the Sol coins and then added Base. And then I don't know if you remember, there was like a 2-week long BNB meme week when BNB crossed $1,000 and went to 1,300. And so they added that. And they also added Monad day one and gave everybody a cool Monad airdrop who had been using the app. So they're trying to be this like chain agnostic, trade anything everywhere, buy it with Apple Pay. You don't need to like understand crypto rails at all. And the cool thing about it is it's like a social layer. And so all the they call it radical transparency. And so some of the best traders and meme coin traders on X and crypto X that we've been following for years, you can follow them and you get a notification exactly when they buy, exactly when they sell. And of course, I'm sure they have sub accounts and ways to like get around some of that too, but that's been really cool. And some of the noise has been really, really helpful in this latest phase where this is where it seems like all the buying and selling of the agent tokens are happening. And it's just really easy to use and really great, and it's on your phone. And so, yeah, I just think they have done the best job, and it's like an area where that I've been like kind of screaming about for years and just not understanding how there's so much money in this industry and like so much money's been thrown around and nobody can just build like a cool fucking app that everyday people can use. So yeah, just really impressed by them. Been following along since the beginning.
Well,
I
it
think
does seem
Uh,
like dozens of teams are trying to build the everything finance app. I couldn't count how
who,
many times I've heard teams talk about that.
but it's, and I've been sort of advising teams off and on over the years, and I always tell them the same thing, especially these like big Cosmos L1 projects that I worked with. They would have like huge initial capitalization and they would be like doing their thing. And I would just be like, grab your two best Rizzlers on your team, like your smartest people who are good at talking to people, make them CEOs of a cool new product that is like going to go out and reach the masses. And so like I don't care if the masses, like if you're targeting Africa or Southeast Asia or like bored Americans or whatever, whoever, just like go find real users and not like you're going to run out of people and capital and mind share if you just have like a DeFi website for people to like click around on and there's only like 1,000th of 1% of the world even understands what they would be looking at. It just seems like you're not tapping into the big market. It doesn't make any sense.
I actually have also more nuanced view on the whole fintech side, especially since before doing crypto, when I worked in financial services, my focus of work was payments and neobanks. You guys know how Revolut grew to be as big as they are today? So
Didn't
there
they
was a
operate in some gray zone or something
yes,
similar
but
to
that's
Uber?
not the reason they grew because they weren't the only ones. There were a bunch of neobanks back in 2014, 2016, 2017. Then the Open API legislation was launched in the UK. The same equivalent was in the US. I forgot the name, and another equivalent in the European Union, but all at the same time. Which what changed is it allowed third-party operatives to purchase banking data from large banks and build products on top of them, which before that was only reserved for big banks. And Revolut was just one of many neobanks that were trying to, become a whole ass bank. Of course, tech first. The reason they grew is they were the first ones, since we talked about incentives earlier, it ties in nicely. Their first big market was Romania. Oh, few people know this, my home country. They paid you 50 lei, which at that time was the equivalent of like 10 euros, per each friend that signed up with your referral code. That no marketing, no paid ads on YouTube, on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram, on anything. Just word of mouth. It spread insanely fast, and then they replicated the same throughout other countries. And while they had all these larger banks paying for, TV ads, radio ads, whatever, billboards and other old school stuff, Revolut was growing on referrals. And they had a slick UI, and it was very easy to deposit and withdraw money from them. So decent UI and a very interesting growth strategy. By the time they got quite big in the UK, they were fighting with stuff like Monzo and also N26, which is a German fintech. Max, you might know it. N26 spent a lot of time and a lot of money in the UK and in London specifically trying to replicate the same strategy that Revolut did. And after like, I think 8 months or a year, they just quit the UK market altogether because even though they were paying people the same referral to come in, nobody wanted to change from Revolut. People were joining, they were signing up, they were getting some money, getting £100 or whatever, then just leaving and using the older one. Why I'm saying this is that once people used back then, it's easy to forget how bad the traditional banks were to use. The Societe Generale, Lloyd's, whatever, BNP Paribas, whatever you're using. Revolut was very, very intuitive. A lot of these newer apps and these new crypto to TradFi to and TradFi to crypto rails that are in the same account. And I know because we are talking to one of these big banks, I'm not going to name which, or their earn product in their crypto side. And their focus is integrating the pure on-chain wallet with a normal banking one. And as far as you have no idea whenever these change. So you can pay stable coins and then the same as how it happens with the Gnosis wallet and or with the EtherFi card. You have stablecoins in your wallet. At the shop, you just pay 25 euros or whatever. As far as you're concerned, it's done. And then the back end, the stablecoin is swapped, same as how you do in a forex market. All of these guys, and that's why I wanna jump on what Dan said. I'm sorry if I butchered your name. I'm horrible with names.
Dude, yeah, no worries. Danny Farmer. Call me anything, dude. I don't care.
Danny. It's the same thing. One of these guys is gonna grow big enough to actually fight the big incumbents. Revolut and N26 and Monzo, they were nobodies compared to massive banks. I mean, at least in the UK, Barclays and Lloyds were massive back then. And you would have had the same argument. Look, this is just a new bank. The demographic is very small, like young millennials, older Gen Zs who can have a bank account. It'll never pick up. The big guys are just going to copy the same thing. And they never did. And they tried to do more younger demographic focused neobanks much later when people were already used with Revolut. So it makes sense for EtherFi. It makes sense for FOMO, for all of these apps to keep paying to get market share in different places, because once you get used, and I've done a lot of research on this before I jumped into crypto as a career. It's very hard to get somebody off an app. Once they get used to it, once they get used to a bank or to a, Netflix versus Hulu, it's very, very hard to make them switch over. You can pay them to use you once or twice, but to switch over, no. Now, if the experience in these crypto-focused neobanks is interesting enough and new enough that they get a certain critical mass of users using them, from then on, they just grow normally like any other bank, like any other financial institution. So don't discount them just because they're these crypto banks trying to make a DeFi protocol into a bank. Yeah, and it will catch for 1, 2, 3 of them. And you only need to grow in a couple of markets before you grow global. Revolut had no success in most countries, and then they did in Romania, which opened them in Eastern Europe, and then it opened them in the UK because second largest population of immigrants in the UK is Romanians. And they could send money very easily outside of just sending it via Western Union. Actual problems that were solved with actual incentives. So, and look at where they are today.
Well, I guess, my point isn't that there aren't going to be some big winners. It seems so obvious that there are going to be some big winners. My question is like, why have 99.9% of crypto projects been like DeFi, building your own L1, building an NFT platform, building all of these different experiments that we've seen, and we don't see really many of the big players who are focused on this case specifically. It seems like if I was an L1, this would be my focus, like any L1. If I was a DeFi platform, this would be my focus. If I was any project, like I would be focused on distribution, and I don't see that, and I haven't seen that. And I have had conversations with most of these projects, and they're not talking about that. So it's not there. Of course, I think there will be some big winners. I just don't understand why well-capitalized projects aren't making this their first project.
Well, I think that many of the ones who are well capitalized now got well capitalized because they jumped on a prior hype trend. I mean, EtherFi launched with a valuation, I think it was in the multiple billions, because they were the largest, like the best PR, the best marketing, the best BD in the entire restaking space. And now they managed to pivot. Mantle was able to capitalize on the whole, we are an L2, so we are automatically going to launch with a multi-billion FTV, and we are closely associated with Bybit, so we even have a centralized exchange connect. So we don't even have to limit ourselves to rivaling Arbitrum and Optimism. We can rival with BNB Chain. So in the past, different things got rewarded by the market, and also if you start out as a project, you cannot always be in the position of thinking with a 10-year, 15-year time horizon. Sometimes you have to think with the time horizon to your next funding round. So you optimize on the stuff that sticks with VCs. And 2 years, 3 years ago, everything was still centered around infrastructure. Nobody wanted to fund apps because it was much easier to sell a grand, ambitious vision of network effects and network premium, monetary premium, whatnot, if you were on the infra side of things. Whereas with an application, you had to present actual growth and adoption metrics. And 2 to 3 years ago, these were not there.
My point is that it's not it doesn't have to be your main thing, but these teams don't even have strategies for like user acquisition of non DeFi native folks, right? And so
What do
it's
you
like,
talk about?
I'm just
Are you
saying, like,
saying that in relation to like Arbitrum and Optimism, or EtherFi,
uh,
Mantle, and the ones who have pivoted?
I'm saying it for any project in crypto. Take someone on your team who's smart and set them loose with a couple other people at a low cost to start building out user-facing applications that use your tech in the background. And that's all they think about. That's what I'm saying. Every single one of these projects needs a user-facing app, and the lift gets smaller every day to do that.
Besides FOMO, is there any app that you think is on a good track to reach that?
I think Pump.fun could figure it out. I think they have enough money. I think they have enough time. I think they have the right way of looking at it. I think they will pick a very specific moment and pay tens of millions of dollars for like the top streamers or the most popular people on the internet to come and do their streams there instead. And so I don't know when that's going to happen, but I think Pump is probably a really good value here. No matter the market conditions the last couple years, every single interesting thing that has happened in the world has become a meme coin and instantly traded on Pump.fun. And so and then you also see Coinbase and Jesse and Brian who so desperately want to become Pump.fun. You know, I think they're having the best couple weeks of their lives, especially Jesse, because everything they've tried to do so far hasn't worked. Memes haven't done that well there. The social tokens, having your own token, all of that didn't do that well there. They just want to be Pump.fun so bad, you can see it. And that's what has made me so bullish on Pump.
Well, to make a very smooth transition over to Base and to the agentic aspect of the last couple of weeks. So Base has just launched x402, so that native payment standard of the internet, together with Stripe. So now in theory, I don't know to what extent in practice you're already able to do that. You should be able to launch what we call Agentic Commerce on Base. So would you say that this is big news? Do you think it's kind of a nothing burger? And also, I mean, Pump is kind of positioned differently right now, no? So do you think that Base is still trying to be Pump, now doubling down on all the agentic stuff and x402 ecosystem? Or, yeah, are they differentiating themselves?
Well, I mean, I think that this specifically just fell into their lap, and then now they're just so fucking stoked that it happened. You know, like I don't think this is a flash in the pan. I think this is probably like one of the most interesting and important use cases so far for all of crypto. And so big picture, I think we've had the last like couple months of people sort of like grasping and trying to find like a new narrative for crypto because everything has been just so like down and gross and things haven't been going well. Prices are down, everybody's leaving the industry and not really sure like what the point of it is, right? So I think you've seen like some of the huge players the last couple months trying to change the narrative to be agents will need crypto. There will be billions of agents and they will all need some form of money because agents don't have social security numbers and passports and identification. They won't be able to use the traditional banking system at all. And so they'll have to use crypto rails. And so this was like the big idea, I think, for this whole like for Q1. And then we kind of like saw it happen with the start of OpenClaw. So it's kind of beginning. And for me, like it isn't at all like hype. I think the narrative actually makes sense. And I think these big projects like Base are going to find ways to have agents trading on marketplaces on Base chain, and that volume and that traction and that use is really all they're looking for. That's how they make money.
What's your take on the Andrew Kang article for the exponential horizon? Do you think we are at the tipping point, or
I do.
how real is this?
I do. I think it's like from what we were talking about at the very beginning, Vlad and I, which was like, this is actually the perfect time for this to happen because there's like no other noise. There's like basically no other hype. There's nothing else going on. Tons of participants have like left the market and been like, fuck this. I'm not putting any more money in crypto. I lost all my money. And then now I think we have like one of the most exciting things that's ever happened in crypto happening right now. And there's almost no one excited about it. But the people you do see excited about are the biggest, most important players in the industry, which is like Tolly and Solana. You've got Brian and the guys at Coinbase, like super stoked about this. You have the CEO of Circle, day one, like right after this starts to happen, say, hey, we're doing a USDC hackathon for this and giving away 100 grand or something in USDC. Like results come out in 2 weeks. Everybody go build. You know, it's happening on Monad. Anyone who, any of these well sort of capitalized L1 who have all this empty block space right now are so freaking excited about this and the possibilities of what this will look like in the future. And so I think you see all the really smart people paying attention. It's time for us to pay attention. You know, if these agents and all of this had happened in 2023, when Dog with Hat was worth $8 billion, and everything else was going on, like sort of like the start of the meme cycle, all of these coins would already be like Banker and Felix and all of these things that are sort of between this like 5 million and 100 million cap range right now, I think would all be in the multi-billions. And I think some of these coins, a lot of them are probably going there this year. I don't think this is hype. I think there's going to be some like absolutely enormous winners here. And it looks like the big winner from the beginning is base, and we'll see how it goes.
Vlad, from the asset management and vault curation perspective, are you guys in your curator circles, in the curator cabal, looking at this at all in terms of agentic payments, x402, and are you concerned? Are you excited about integrating this, and what new opportunities, but maybe also risks or disruptions could that come along with?
The thesis that we're going to have agents and you talk to them and they just through magic connect to protocols and to assets and get the proper price feeds and do the proper accounting to run complex strategies, and they do the risk management for it. We've been hearing it for a couple of years. Some people are trying to build it, but we'll see. You can definitely use AI like for quant work, and we definitely use it to double check some of our math and stuff. In terms of giving a vibe coded bot complete ownership of your wallet is still a ways away, I think. I'm not that much of an AI believer. I'm a bit against the trend here. My best friend also has PhD in AI, and we talk about this a lot. There's a lot of overhype in what AI can do. It definitely evolved a lot over the past years, but to the point where it's going to leave all of us without jobs. Still not. It's not going to happen anytime soon, I think. What does excite me is the possibility to have agents find strategies much easier and have dashboards that are built by agents. Whereas the average person, you don't have time unless you're like us and you work in the space. Even we miss things because there's just so much happening at the same time where you can't catch everything. Using it as a research tool and as a portfolio assistant, that would definitely would be very good. You can already use it. I use personally ChatGPT for my own portfolio because I can talk to it, and I basically train it on what to do for my own portfolio and stocks. And we talk like once a week whenever I do rebalances or I check my positions, because it's much better to get. It's amazing as a research assistant. And all of our guys use it for like the internal dashboards that we're building and the internal data tools that we're using for our strats. But I don't expect a lot of disruption in terms that you'll have one agent that will outperform Gauntlet Steakhouse, us, and others. I think that's still a ways away. You can definitely try and give a chatbot your money and see what it does, and just tell them make money, don't lose money, and don't be wrong, and see where it takes you. I don't want to be a Debbie Downer on the AI stuff, but there's been so much hype over the past years with it, and I think it's so massively overinflated in terms of how much money it went in it. And now with all the data centers, the economics don't make sense, but we'll see. We'll see how much they're going to grow. And if they're going to,
Yeah, we didn't.
yeah, Danny, please.
Yeah, so I think all of that is true up until like maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago. I think why the moment, like exactly right now that we're living in is different. Like this time is different, but it actually is I think with Claude over the last few weeks, for the first time, Claude built Claude Code and Claude for Opus 4.6. These were just like a couple week build out. So I think like if we're not there, we are so close within like weeks of the loop being closed where AI is becoming fully improving without humans in the loop. I think this starts like an exponential process that most people aren't used to thinking about exponentials, right? Like we're humans and we're thinking like on these linear time scales. And I don't think that they are interesting or relevant anymore for what's happening. I think we have just passed this moment where agents will improve themselves so rapidly, and these models will improve themselves so rapidly, and like in every metric, right? How cheap it is to run them, how good they are, how fast they are, how fast they can train themselves. Now that we have super intelligent beings or digital slaves or whatever you want to call this, in the loop with humans out of the loop, I think the self-improvement is so rapid and so exponential that I fully disagree. I think that agents and AI will be ready and capable and better than me at running my portfolio and my strategies like within weeks. And so it's funny you said like today's the day I gave my OpenClaw agent a deadline to be ready to trade for me. And so I gave it a 24-hour like, hey, I'm sending you $1,000 in 24 hours. Like you need to be ready. All the wallets, all the security, all the back testing, all of your paper trading that you've been doing for the last few days. And so I'm sending my first money to my agent today, and we'll see how it goes and we can check back on it. I don't expect them to be amazing at it right now. I do expect my agent in like a week or two to be the greatest trader who's ever lived. So that's my expectation. What's cool is like, we're going to get Sonnet 5, I think, very soon, definitely this month. I think it will be so amazing and so powerful that I don't know. I think conversations like this, I think in a year will just be like hilarious. We'll be like, oh, yeah, we didn't think agents could do this. We didn't think they could do that. And it will go to like, oh, you manage your own portfolio? Like, what are your agents doing all day? So I'm all in, full steam ahead. I think this is like, I really think this is like the weirdest, most important moment in human history, like this quarter right now.
Yeah, I think that's a very high hope we're ending on here before we're hitting the hour. Funnily enough, the podcast that is coming up right after, so if you're in the live stream, you have to come back in a few minutes, is going to be with Mac David, who's working on silicon.net, who are doing tokenized GPUs. So essentially for all the stuff that you are playing around with, Danny, they try to be the pick and shovel sellers. And yeah, I think that will shed some more light on the economics behind it and whether we are digging ourselves, pun intended, into another big hole after the bubble, or if this truly is different. Thanks a lot for coming on, guys.
Thanks for having us, man. Vlad, great to meet you, dude.
Great to meet you, Danny. Awesome chat, man.